Hey everyone, and welcome to my 21st Patreon funded how-to video. This month I've got something particularly special to show you, and it's quite unique as well. This is a technique that I have worked on and off for a couple of years actually, and eventually cracked it, and it's how to repair the centre of an old granny square. Now I know that we all probably at somewhere in our lives have had heirloom crochet where something as neat and pretty as this has turned into something as terrifying as this. Be it from just a badly sewn in end, or clothes moths, or time, or cinder from a fire. Somehow, somewhere, those really precious granny square blankets explode sometimes and give you this awful, terrifying vision here. These granny square blankets end up getting put away and never getting to see the light of day again. Well, I'm going to show you how to take this and turn it back into something as neat and seamless as this here. And I'm going to do it using this started piece that I have here in front of me. So what I have on here is a granny square that I have set up ready to be repaired. Essentially what I have here in front of me is this square where I have ignored the exploded center round here, and I've focused on the second round. And what I've done is I've taken my ball of yarn, threaded it with a bodkin, which is a flat topped needle, and I have threaded that needle through the remaining stitches of row number 2. Then I've nipped away all of these exploded pieces, and it has left me with this here. So the last row you have here is row 2. I'm going to replace row 1 in this piece. When you're threading it in, you need to make sure you do it in the opposite direction to the way you crochet. Most right-handed crocheters will crochet in a counterclockwise direction. So when you're threading your yarn in, you need to put the square in front of you and thread the yarn in clockwise instead, because you're always going to be going back against the grain of the piece that you're doing. Now the yarn that I have inside the square itself, I'm going to call that the lead yarn, so I can identify it kind of apart from the rest of the stuff I have in front of me here. So the yarn going through my square is called the lead yarn, and I'm going to be using that at intervals to create the central square or central row of my crochet here. Now I've also set up a piece here, which is the beginning of a regular granny square. This is the one my mum taught me when I was very little. It's 4 chains and a slip stitch, 2 chains, and then 3 trebles, or for Americans, 3 double crochets. And that's my first cluster created in the center of my 4 here. You can see all 4 of them sitting pretty there in the middle. So I'm going to carry on with this and set myself up nicely. The first thing I need to do is make sure that I pull lots and lots of yarn through the square itself, out of the ball, so I've got all this slack for my work. Then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to carry on crocheting for a little bit of this. You create your first cluster first, and then I've got a chain between my clusters, so I have that in place. At this point we are going to start doing the repair work itself. So I'm going to take my loop here and I'm going to make it ridiculously long, really nice and long like this. I'm going to take my bodkin and I'm going to thread the loop itself onto my needle like that. So that's actually what was on the hook itself here is now on my needle entirely. And I'm going to take a look at the center of my granny square here, and I'm going to see where the lead yarn is threaded through that first set of corner clusters. And I'm going to sew my loop back through exactly the same direction that that lead yarn has gone through. So I'm going to make super sure that I don't sew through the lead yarn itself, but I need to make sure I get through the corner clusters instead. So I'll thread through the first 3 there, pull that through, and then I'll thread through the second 3. 1, 2, 3, there we go. Pull that through. Before you go further, pull the lead yarn back and forth through that cluster to make sure you haven't sewn through the lead yarn itself. And I haven't, it slides through just fine, so I can carry on by taking my needle off that loop and then pulling on the opposite side here. On this side here is where I'm looking at. I'm going to take the lead yarn and pull that in the direction that makes my loop get smaller. Now this will be a little stiffer because it's got a bit of traveling to do, but once I pull that nice and tight, I put my hook back on it, finish off tightening up, and I get to carry on with the second cluster of the center of my granny square. So the piece of yarn you are pulling there to tighten your loop, hang on to that, because that's what we're going to crochet with. I'm going to take that and I'm going to complete the next 3 trebles of the cluster, as if I didn't have all this madness hanging on my crochet here. Just ignore it entirely, tuck it away wherever you need it to be. So that's my second treble, and then my third treble, and then the one chain which denotes the corner of this particular granny square. I once again make my loop nice and big, and I'm going to repeat that threading through the corner clusters process. So I take my bodkin, thread my loop, find the very next set of corner clusters along, identify the lead yarn going through it, and then thread in a counterclockwise direction, get that bodkin through all of the feet on that corner cluster. Now there should be 2 loops per stitch. I've got 6 stitches here, so you should be going 12 loops in total. Once that's through, I can take my needle off again, identify the lead yarn to the left of the corner cluster I just threaded through, and give that a pull, once again making sure that you have your loop handy. Pop the hook on and finish tightening that up like so. We're going to repeat this for a third time, but you will notice at this stage that your first corner cluster is sitting really prettily there within the fabric that you're actually creating. So it's kind of like going back in time really and doing things backwards. So it's as close to time travel as crochet gets, I think. So there we go. So we're going to finish off our third cluster here of our center. In we go, and we do the first treble, the second treble, nice and fast, and the third one, and then the chain that denotes the corner. Once again, we are going to make our loop gigantic, thread that on, identify the next set of corner clusters, find the lead yarn going through it, and follow that through. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Go. Pull the lead yarn to the left of that corner cluster you just threaded through to tighten up that loop. Pop your hook on, tighten it up entirely, and this is where we're almost done now. We're going to finish off our last cluster of our new center. 1, 2, 3. Our last chain, pull your loop nice and tight. Find the last corner that we need to thread through. Find the lead yarn in it. You should have this down at this stage. Pop your bodkin through all the feet of the 6 treble crochets that make up that corner. And at this stage, all you have left is the ball, your lead yarn that has been threaded through everything else already. So now all you have to do really is to pull the yarn that's coming out of the ball itself to tighten up that final loop. Hoop your hook on, tighten it up entirely, and slip stitch into the very first treble of your round to seal everything up nice and tight. When you cut and bind off, that's it done. Entirely, completely repaired. And you can see there that every single one of your stitches goes into the next row along, so it really is like time traveling. That is a completely seamless repair job done on what was originally an entirely exploded, ready for the bin granny square. So if you give that a go, please do let me know. I would love to know if you use it to repair any of your own heirloom crochet you have knocking around the house. And remember, videos like this are only made with your help. So please do visit my Patreon page and consider making a pledge. Thanks a million for watching. I'll see you next month.